So the other day I was sat there with the F1 2021 game open, wanting to record a video. I originally wasn't really sure exactly what kind of video to make, but I quite like the idea of doing like a ridiculous amount of laps in time trials and seeing, how my pace changes, maybe try switching off assists, just stuff like that really, just experimenting like that. But the problem was that it was quite hard to make myself do 100 continuous laps, which was my original plan, with no real goal in sight. But this was when I had an idea. Jarno Opmeer, as you probably all know, is an F1 2021 YouTuber and esports driver. He is known for pretty much being the quickest player in the game and just an absolute mad lad. He's a two-time F1 esports world champion, winning the championship in 2020 and 2021. But on top of this, he also had quite a bit of experience in karting and actual racing. He has competed with drivers who are now in F1 and F2, and most recently he competed in Formula Renault for a couple of years after some time in F4. So with all of this in mind, I just thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could manage to do a lap quicker than one of his laps? Obviously though, I'm nowhere near his level, so I couldn't compete with any of his proper time trial hot lap times, so I had to look elsewhere. I decided to watch through some of the qualifying sessions from the most recent F1 Esports Championship. My first idea was to try and beat one of his lap times in China, which was a 1:30.453. However, after not too long, it occurred to me that no amount of practice could get me anywhere close to this time. China, just for me anyway, feels like such a tricky track to get right, especially on controller, and I couldn't even get close to within a second of his time. I then had the idea to do the same but at Monza, I thought it was pretty much just straight lines in Monza. How hard could it be? Turns out it was very hard, and again it felt like there was no hope. I then decided to check the Austria Qualifying session, and I saw that in his first run on Q2 on the soft tyres, Jarno Opmeer got a time of a 1:03.251. I checked my current time and I was only about 6 tenths off. However, obviously Austria is a very short lap, so it's harder to make up time there than other tracks. But still nonetheless, I felt like this was my best chance. I immediately got a new setup and I switched off traction control. See, I usually play with traction control on medium, but I just felt like if I were to get anywhere close to Jarno's time, I'd have to switch it off. Although, as you'll see, it made it very difficult. I'm guessing my original lap time around the Red Bull ring wasn't my best, as I was immediately able to find a couple of tenths. Although I struggled to not invalidate here, and I also had problems with spinning at turns 1 and turns 3. I was so focused with improving my lap times that I forgot to even record the lap where I beat my personal best, but you can see here that I now have a time of a 1:03.752, which is decent progress, and I was even up by another tenth when I once again invalidated my lap time at the exit of turn 8, a reoccurring theme of this video. However, shortly after I was on what was a very good lap, as I was almost 3 tenths up on my personal best, and despite losing some time in the final 2 corners, I still improved by a decent margin to a 1:03.547, meaning I was now less than 3 tenths away from the ultimate goal. There was more progress a few laps later when, despite some not great first 2 sectors, I pushed a bit more through the final 2 corners and actually managed to set a new personal best, and despite this only being by a small margin, it just proved that there was still more time to be found, so there was hope. During lap 32 I managed to find some more time in sector 2 and once again improved on my personal best, but still only by a small margin. At this point though, I was still sort of learning how best to do a lap around here, so being only 2 and a bit tenths off the target still felt very promising. Lap 35 was another okay lap, until the final 2 corners where I really pushed and managed to find some extra time, which actually allowed me to gain by another tenth of a second. At this point, I was almost thinking this was going to be too easy, and how stupid I was to think that. It was on lap 47 where things started to get interesting. I had a really good first sector and a decent second sector, and for the first time so far, there were times during the lap where my delta time would have been enough to be quicker than Jarno's time if it had stayed the same. Unfortunately though, it didn't, and I still lost a lot of time in the last sector, but it was still enough to now take me to within 1/10 of the target. The problem however was that even though it didn't feel like it at the time, my turn 1 during that last lap on lap 47 was actually insane for me. So this meant that from now onwards, every time I tried to do turn 1, I would always be down on my delta, often by up to a tenth of a second, and this would prove to make it very difficult for me mentally. And by the time I was approaching a full race distance in time trials, I was starting to lose patience, as it had been so long since I improved and I was still spinning at turns 1 and 3 so often. What was also happening a lot was me bottling decent laps. Honestly, it was crazy how many times I would have a good delta, but then the pressure would just get to me and I would just make a mistake. As horrible as this is to say, I was like the Tottenham of F1 time trials. I just kept bottling any chance of success I had. Another important thing to note is that it wasn't until lap 116 when I actually started pausing and restarting laps. Before then, if I crashed or invalidated, I'd still complete the lap just for practice. So after lap 116, my lap count barely changed, as I would only be able to complete the lap like once every 20 laps started. And at this point it was getting really hard, and there were so many times where I was getting close to doing it, but then I'll just bottle it. And the more this happened, the more I was starting to doubt myself. After a few more hours of constant spins, bottling and pain, and by the way, I do just want to emphasise the fact that I started this about 9:45 in the evening. This current clip is from 2 AM, and other than just a quick break to like quickly check my phone or something, I never really properly stopped doing this. But finally there was some good progress when I managed to actually improve by 700ths of a second to take me just 18 thousandths of a second away from Jarno Opmeer's time. It was so close now, and the challenge was actually starting to feel really possible. So at this point, as I begin what is officially lap 135, this was an interesting point. So right now, when this clip is being recorded, it's currently 4 AM, and just before this lap, or well, a bit before this lap started, I said to myself that no matter what, when it gets to 4 AM, I'm gonna stop, because it's just too much. I've been playing for so long trying to do this, and I was just so determined that I just really didn't want to stop, but it was getting difficult. So yeah, starting this lap, I knew this would basically be my last lap, and as you can see, I'm actually quite a bit up on my delta. I had a really good start to the lap, sort of an okay turn 4, but I've still gained time a bit there. And at this point I was starting to think like, oh my god, like I was really getting the pressure. Oh my god, this is it, this is the last lap. Oh my god, imagine if I had to do it on the last lap. Imagine how good for the video that would be. And then I invalidated. And as you can see, I was a bit disappointed, as I did drive flat out into a wall. Yeah.
The next day.
What I also just want to emphasise as well is that this wasn't just about, you know, beating Jarno Opmeer's time as quick as I can. When I first started doing this was on the Friday evening, knowing that this video has to be uploaded on the Sunday, so I had left it a bit late. And so the longer it's taken, the more I was getting really stressing, like, oh my god, like if I just never do it, like if I just don't do it in time, then I just don't have a video for Sunday. Because hopefully you've noticed that on Sundays I upload, you know, like proper videos that aren't just clips. So I was just getting really stressed out, just thinking, and that really didn't help actually. That made it a lot harder, just because it just added more pressure on, and then that just meant more bottling. So yes, then after I played until 4 AM on Friday evening, I woke up on Saturday, ready to do some more laps. As you can see now, I'm currently on a lap. This was like an hour and a half into doing the time trials. Actually, only 12 laps completed in that time, which is pretty crazy. But as you can see, I'm up on the delta time. Not by much, but still by a little bit. Just if I can just send it through these last few corners, the pain might all be over. I've lost a bit of time, but I've gained it on the exit of the last corner.
With a time exactly the same.
Yep, that really did just happen. Honestly, you couldn't have written a better script. After about 7.5 hours at this point, trying to beat Jarno Opmeer's time of a 1:03.251, I finally improved after so long, and my time was exactly the same to the nearest millisecond. Honestly, I had kind of imagined it happening before, but I didn't want to think about it, and yeah, it was an interesting moment. And I was just sort of thinking to myself when it happened, like, wait, so like, am I done now? But realistically, this video is about being faster than Jarno Opmeer, not matching his time. So I continued. So yeah, as you just saw, I finally did it after just under 8 hours of time trials in 2 different sessions and around 200 laps completed and somewhere between 600 and 1,000 laps started. I finally beat Jarno Opmeer's time, and in the end I actually did it by 44 thousandths of a second, which doesn't actually sound a lot saying it now, but in this context I was actually surprised because I thought I'd only beat it by like a few thousandths if I even got it. So yeah, honestly, so I'm back now at Austria, just reliving all the PTSD. So I'm not an expert at the game. I would never like really do any like tips of playing the game, just because I just know I'm not good enough. Like realistically, there's just people out there better than me that would help you more. But I spent so long doing this that it would seem silly not to at least sort of tell you guys what I did in the hope that maybe it could help you. Turn 3, you can see I've done it brilliantly. I just used a lot of curb on the entry, just sort of turn really, nothing that special. And here, just you kind of just use all the curbs, just send it. I'm so terrible at doing these track guides. So yeah, that was one of the worst experiences of my life. I mean, look, I'm going to say this now. I know there's going to be a lot of people watching this that for them this sort of lap time is actually like not even like that good. You know, it's just kind of like average maybe. Fair enough, it means you're fast. But obviously I know I've made this into a big deal, but for me, like, that was actually a very good lap time to get, and it wasn't even just about that. It's more just when I started, like I just couldn't stop. I just had to, like, it became more than just about beating Jarno Opmeer's lap time. I just couldn't stop until I completed it. Thank God I did it, otherwise I would have been here for the rest of my life. And you know what I'm going to say now? I can't be bothered to look at the stats. There's probably a large percentage of you guys that aren't subscribed. You've got to subscribe, man. Come on. Like, stop slacking. Just hit that button. But yes, that is going to be all for this video. Leave a like if you liked it. Leave a dislike if you disliked it. I wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But yeah, other than that, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.